Welcome to the WakeUp Protocol. I am your host, Nadja Haldimann, and together we're having life-changing conversations with real people about spiritual awakening and the transformations that follow. We're mapping the messy path of awakening so you can go further faster and feel a little less alone along the way. For this episode of the WakeUp Protocol, I'm joined by Dr. Garret Kusch, a former professional soccer player for the Canadian national team, turned chiropractor, author, and founder of the Trinity Health Program. Garret's story is one of incredible evolution, from the intensity of elite sports and performance-driven culture to a life attuned to frequency, flow, and inner alignment. In this conversation, Garret shares how he went from chasing success to allowing it, not by pushing harder, but by listening more deeply. He talks about the moment he realized healing had to be holistic and how movement, mindset, and energy are all part of one integrated system. We explore his journey from the playing field to the healing room and the inner work that allowed him to soften, slow down, and create a life that feels truly aligned with his soul. This episode is a permission slip to stop forcing and start attuning to your body, your energy, and your truth. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did.
If we function in a way in which we were designed by our creator, it really is effortless. And that doesn't mean no effort. It means less effort, effortless.
Effortless.
Right? So it's the effortless way. What is that? It's following your heart and your soul. And as I continue to evolve into that place of energetic field life is probably what I call it. Living the energetic field life. What is that? That's being authentic to you. What do you want to do in this moment? There's so much of this have to. There's so much of this description of what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I've never lived my life that way. I felt many times people years ago would tell me, you can't say it that way. I'm like, why? I'm just being honest. But you can't. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can't. And you always want it the easy way. And I'm like, I do. You're right. But I felt guilty. Maybe I'm supposed to struggle and hustle and grind it. And, if I'm not putting in hours and hours at work, I'm not worthy of making millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that sounds like the collective story. And I don't want to be a part of that. I just don't.
Garret Kusch, welcome to the WakeUp Protocol.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. I'm so grateful. Thank you for reaching out. I absolutely want to be here for sure.
So lovely to have this conversation with you today. We have just recently met, and usually my guests up until now have been people that I have known for years, if not decades. And I'm just really excited to learn more about your journey. We met in a mastermind group, and I really noticed your positivity and your willingness to say yes to life and just that light that you're shining. And you have such a fascinating background. You used to be a professional soccer player for Canada, and then eventually became a chiropractic doctor. And I'm really, really curious to learn about your story and what turned you into the person that you are today. So I'm wondering if you could maybe start a little bit by talking about what it was like to be a professional soccer player.
I'd love it. I'd love it. It was my dream. I loved playing. It didn't matter what I played. I loved playing, and sports was just a big game to me. And so, back in our day, I'll date myself, but back in our day, we played a lot. We were outside a lot. And my friends, it was all sports, all different types. We went out at 8 a.m. and we weren't back till, 8, 9, 10 at night. And it was always playing sports. And so I just did my life that way. I just played and loved it and enjoyed it. And I always worked hard. I always tried my best. And with that, I developed into a pretty good athlete. Soccer, believe it or not, wasn't my favorite sport. It wasn't my sport I was best at by far, but it just, things kind of started falling in place and in my lap. And I wasn't the type of person to go chase too much, which is what I understand more of now. So I just kept playing, and the universe, God kept delivering more and more opportunities. And so then I went from, playing in my local catchment to getting to the higher levels. And then eventually I got selected to play with Canada's younger teams here over in BC. And then, believe it or not, right before I was going to go to chiropractic college, because I'd signed up, I'd got all my prerequisites, I was ready to go. The senior national team was in town, and we, from the Olympic squad, provided them the competition to get ready for their games. And so I was asked by the coach, he said, come on out, we'll play a game. And I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to play that for sure. So we went out and I played that game, and I scored 3 goals against their top defenders. And so the coach of the senior team came over to me right in that moment, right in the middle of the field, and was like, hey, what are you doing for the next few years? And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to go to school. But I'm like, no, nothing. Why? What do you want? And he's like, hey, do you want to come travel and play with us? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And so that's how that just kept progressing. Whenever I needed something, it's like, oh, here you go, here you go, here you go. Even to the point of earning income. He said, you got to play with the pro team if you want to play with the national team. I'm like, okay. So I just phoned some guy, and some team showed up, and I got paid. And it was amazing experience.
What an incredible story of just following the playfulness of life and continuing that and trusting every step of the way, and even having a plan of wanting to go to school to become a chiropractic doctor, and then still getting pulled back into the fun, the play, the joy. What I hear is that what you did was really, truly trusting the process. And at the same time, you had a plan, something that you could do in case it wasn't going to work out. So there was no pressure. Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely spot on. And the other thing was, it was unconscious. I wasn't aware of doing it that way because I did grow up in a place where it was about doing stuff. I mean, my parents were beautiful. They just allowed us to do whatever we wanted, even to the extreme. Right? Like a pro athlete. Oh my gosh, what about your schooling? What about this? What about that? But never anything like that. I was just allowed to flow, which was great. And it's very interesting because when I shifted into going to chiropractic college, when I look back, the later stages of my career, I started to really think about the contracts. I started to think about the money. I started to think about futures and savings. And it was really interesting because the contracts stopped. So interest stopped. Other teams that were interested started to fall away. And then I was all of a sudden in this place where I was trying to make it happen. And there was a resistance, a block, and now understanding, holding too tightly, needing something, which gives a repelling type of energy. And then funny thing is, I let go. I let go again, and I went out to a game, and it's like I just said, whatever. There was no contracts on the table. Nobody was interested. It was the end of the season. I was in Scandinavia, and they're like, okay, we have to win by 5 goals in order to play a playoff to go to the next level. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. We ended up winning 6-1, and I scored 5 goals.
So you got all the 5 goals plus 1 from somebody else.
Yeah. And it was a record in the Swedish division I was in. And then everyone started coming back, and they're like, oh my gosh, who's this guy? We want to sign him. Whenever he came in, and it gave me, again, unconscious to it, but recognizing that if you just let go and you surrender to the process, to the love and the joy, what's in your heart, you're taken care of. And so when I started thinking that way, nowadays, that's the way my life's gone. And I look back at it and go, oh, I can see all the reasons why my life went the way it did.
This is really fascinating. So you were in total flow. You followed the playfulness, and things worked out for you. And then at one point, there was a moment where you started grasping for something, and then things didn't quite work out. And then somehow you managed to get back into a place where you were able to let go. And the moment you let go, flow started happening again. It's almost the way I hear it. It's almost like there's flow, and then there's blocking flow, and then there's taking that block away again so it can continue flowing. Am I hearing that right?
Perfect.
Yeah. So when you hear that, what exactly happened in your life that caused you to start blocking it? And then how did the flow start emerging again?
I think primarily I grew up in a family where money was a tough thing. We had 4 boys. We were busy kids. My dad was working his butt off. My mom was taking care of us all, and it was beautiful. But I also remember the talk about not enough money and things like this. And we never experienced that as kids.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the only thing I can attribute this to was that when I got into working on my own and I'm like, okay, I need to earn a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing soccer, is because I'm like, man, I'm not making millions, so I better go get a job that I could possibly do that with. I need to get a real job. All these things came in because that was the belief system, the conditioned belief.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flow, the connection to higher consciousness, the connection to universe, God, whatever you want to call it, you become disconnected. You separate yourself. You think you can do it yourself. And then I get on the soccer field, and it was always this universal playing thing. Like, it didn't matter whether you spoke a different language. It didn't matter what size you were. It's like when you got on the field, it was like a universal playing field. Yeah. And so when I just got there in that moment, I just remember going, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to play again.
That makes a lot of sense. What I'm hearing a lot from my guests here on this podcast is that awakening is really embodying and being in that present moment of that flow state. And so because you had the gift of having a profession that actually got you into your body, that probably helped you get back into that flow state without having to use an outside tool like to do a run or a workout while you're sitting on a desk to get back into that flow state.
Mm-hmm. That's so well articulated. It's like I never had to work at it. Mm-hmm. I just never thought of it in any other way. And so it really was this sense of playfulness. There was no worry. And the only way I can say this is I grew up wanting it the simple way. Mm-hmm. Effortless. I didn't want to hustle and grind and work. And people said, oh, you're so dedicated to get out there and practice, and you're so focused and disciplined. But looking back at it now from a higher level of consciousness, I guess, I realized that that stuff is inherent in you when you're in flow, but it's perceived by someone at a lower consciousness as having to have discipline and grit and persistence. And I'm like, I didn't have any of that. I just kind of showed up and played. But I loved it so much. My body is hurting. I can barely breathe, and we're throwing up because we're working out so hard, but I got a smile on my face. It's like, how is that possible? Other than that being such a purpose, such a desire, such a love for it, that I don't even need to think about the persistence. So I think a lot of people nowadays, because of their conditioned thinking and the way they've maybe been brought up, they believe they're supposed to be the accountant, the lawyer, the doctor, even the entrepreneur. It just doesn't feel right, but they willfully try. And you can be very successful that way. Mm-hmm. But I think now it's the feeling behind it that's really the most important.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is forcing versus allowing. And you just allowed. And when you allow, you do give your absolute bestest because there is nothing else to worry about. And so it can look like it's forced when you see it from a lower level of consciousness. But from a higher level, it's just following the bliss. And I'm really interested in conscious communities where we can really create an environment where everybody thrives. And I had this conversation several times where people are like, well, if you create an environment where everybody just does what they love to do, nobody will clean the toilets. I'm like, that's not the case at all. I will clean the toilets because when I am staying in a cabin with friends, I tend to clean the toilet once or twice a day because I personally want to be in a clean bathroom. And so I know it happens. And it's not because it's something that feels like it's a gross thing to do that nobody wants to do. It's, I want the clean thing. And so if I do it more often, it never gets gross. I feel like we will all do the things that will make our experience of life the highest version, whatever that takes. And to other people, it looks like work, it looks like hustle. But if you're actually aligned, you just do the things. I like decorating homes and making things beautiful. And so having a clean toilet is a huge part of that for me.
And I absolutely agree and love that. I think that's the essence of, I believe, our existence. My way's very similar. There's times they'll be like, hey, the kids got to put their dishes in the dishwasher and clean. I'm like, why don't we get them to do it? You shouldn't have to do it all the time. And she says to me, she goes, I don't do it for them. I'm like, what? She goes, I do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to benefit them.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh.
Now imagine a world where we all do the things for ourselves to benefit our highest version of the life we want to live. And if we all do that, we all benefit from it.
I think that is the truth. The difficulty is the implementation of that because of the separation of maybe the consciousness of individuals. I'm in total agreement that this world is more love than it is hate. And I think it's more about stuff happening for us instead of happening to us.
Yes.
But a lot of people don't see it that way. Oh, you're naive and you're blind to it. You're going to get taken. And I think why I am where I am right now is because I always said this in my life that I wanted it this way. I wanted it free and flow and easy. And I don't like schedules. I still don't like them. I just want it simple and loving and joyful and fun. Mm-hmm. But I believe that when we aren't in alignment with our own authenticity, our truth, what's genuine to us is when the hustle and the grind start to creep in. Mm-hmm. Because if you ask me, am I ever going to retire? I'm like, why would I stop doing what I love to do? I don't get it, but I do get it. But I don't get it for me. From my experience, this isn't the common way of looking at life and doing life. It just isn't. So I was blessed to be a chiropractor in a clinic that sees a lot of people. And when you see a lot of people, you get a sense of the collective consciousness of the majority. I'm a really curious person, so I would pay attention, and I realized a lot weren't happy. Mm-hmm. They weren't happy with their health, their body. They weren't happy with their finances, with their relationships, with the job they were in, with their amount of vacation they had. And I'm like, I don't want that, which must mean then that if I don't want that, I can't do what they do. I can't think the way they think, and I can't feel the way they feel. So if I'm going to do it differently, I got to think differently, feel differently, and act differently. And when you do that, it's incredible. And I've done it recently to the point where it sheds away what doesn't fit your reality anymore. And so my practice really started to slow down because individuals that I normally saw no longer resonated with me. And so my practice is starting to really get slow. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I'm really focused and interested in explaining, teaching, helping people understand how they're designed to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And if we function in a way in which we were designed by our creator, it really is effortless. And that doesn't mean no effort. It means less effort, effortless.
Effortless.
Right? So it's the effortless way. What is that? It's following your heart and your soul. And as I continue to evolve into that place of energetic field life is probably what I call it. Living the energetic field life. What is that? That's being authentic to you. What do you want to do in this moment? I don't want to go to work. Then don't go to work. Like what's the big, I have to go. No, we don't. There's so much of this have to, there's so much of this, description of what, we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I've never lived my life that way. I felt many times people years ago would tell me, you can't say it that way. I'm like, why? I'm just being honest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you can't. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can't. And you always want it the easy way. And I'm like, I do. You're right. But I felt guilty. Maybe I'm supposed to struggle and hustle and grind it. And, if I'm not putting in hours and hours at work, I'm not worthy of making millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that sounds like the collective story. And it's like, I don't want to be a part of that. I just don't.
Yeah. It resonates so deeply with me. I worked in a corporation for 8 years in the tech industry. In the first few years, I absolutely loved working there. And then at some point, I just didn't like it anymore. And I definitely stayed 2 years longer than I should have. Mm-hmm. But I just made that same choice. It's like, I don't want to go to work anymore. I don't want to do what I did. And so I reinvented myself and I took on other gigs and started working with people. And all of a sudden, that business became successful because I loved what I did. And I had deep connections with my clients and we played together. We co-created together. And we also ended up making a living that way.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it just, again, I'm in a pivot right now, right? With this podcast that I'm doing, I'm shifting. I'm doing spiritual work now because I feel like that's what's the most important thing that feels most aligned to me, really helping people see how we can drop into that higher frequency and be authentically living out loud as our truest versions of ourselves, and then see what happens from that place, and not from a place of fear, because fear blocks things again, but from a place of openness, of joy, of alignment with the heart. Does it feel good or does it feel bad? And if it feels good, do more of that. And if it feels bad, that's an indication that we're supposed to be doing something else. So I know you were a professional soccer player. And then at some point, something happened. You got an injury. And I'm curious what exactly happened in that moment and how that pivoted your life and where you ended up today.
Well, it was a day in playing soccer. I was in Belgium, woke up the way I've always woken up, stiff, achy, sore. Now I look back, my back was not good shape. Driving cars, walking in malls, that was all extremely difficult, painful, super stiff. So got up, but for me, that was normal. That was an everyday day for me. And I thought all the same stuff everyone thinks, I'm hard on my body and it's just the way it is. And so I got up, I got onto the field, and I literally just poured the balls out of the bag, and I kicked one, and I fell over because it felt like someone stabbed me in the back, and I had no idea what happened. Trying to run over, they did MRIs and CT scan, and I got 2 herniated discs, osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, and degenerative joint disease, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck is that? But it sounds bad, and I'm in a lot of pain, so what the heck are we going to do? Not knowing anything, I'm just like, well, let's get this back to where I was. And so rehabbed it. And then for the next 3 years of my career, it basically continued. I would have an episode like that every year. And the last one that I had was a little longer, kind of lingered a little bit more, limited my amount of play. And so at that moment, it was the same as saying, you know what, maybe I should get a real job, right? Because I didn't think soccer could provide me with what I needed. So I was like, okay, let's go become a chiropractor. And I became a chiropractor and went through all the schooling. And as an athlete, it was so fun. And I loved the work and I loved the information. And I didn't even study because I was just reading and loving the information. So very similar, right? Something I just loved. I became a chiropractor. 7 years into practice, I was done. I'm like, this sucks. And the reason was because I was treating people, but they weren't getting better the way I anticipated they should be getting better.
Okay, so the way you anticipated to get better when you had that episode on the field and you said, let's just figure out how to heal again, you now wanted to create that healing, that transformation in your clients. But what I hear a lot is that people keep coming back to chiropractors. They're basically hooked for life because they get a little adjustment and it feels better for a few weeks and then it's back to the same place. And so that's like an addictive relationship between them and the chiropractor.
Absolutely. It's exactly that. And it extends to everything else. You go see a massage therapist. How long does it last? You go see a physio. How long does it last? You go see acupuncture. When you start to investigate each of those, you realize that at the end of the day, we are just treating a symptom in a lot of the cases. And in some cases, people, quote unquote, get better. But to me, the better is it never comes back. Mm-hmm. So what I was seeing is they get better, they'd leave, they'd come back with another episode. And then they would tell me, they'd be like, oh, I stopped coming in for treatment. I stopped doing my exercises. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that's right. Come on, let's do it again. But that didn't make sense. And so I'm a curious person. Mm-hmm. I don't settle. I don't like to rely on things in my life outside of me. I think we have everything given to us by our Creator to live a happy, joyful life without anything outside of natural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, people shouldn't rely on me. So in that moment, I made the decision, I'm going to figure this out. Because either I was going to quit being a chiro and do something else, or I was going to figure out this back pain thing. And my back was still bad at that time too.
Okay. I'm glad you're saying that, because as you're explaining how you're working with your clients, I'm wondering, have you figured out yours at this point? So then what happened? What did you figure out?
I was contemplating a couple things. First of all, 80% of the population has back pain. I'm like, that's huge. That's bigger than like pandemics, right? That's massive. There's a lot of people suffering from it. So just like pandemics, there's got to be a common stimulus. So I'm like, well, what is that? Well, everything's different. Different jobs, different body compositions, different vehicles, different mattresses, different chairs, different jobs. Like everything's different with people, but for some reason we all have this back pain. And so in that state, I went to the gym and I was watching people deadlift and squat. And I'm looking over there and I'm like, that's interesting. When we're in the gym, we're told to use good form. And when I looked at a deadlift, it's a very specific form. It's a hip hinge. The spine doesn't move.
Yeah.
And in that moment, everything in my life, everything I'd experienced, and everything I'd learned in chiropractic, all my results in the clinic made sense in one moment. It's truly what I would call an epiphany, or better yet, a spiritual awakening, where you go, holy cow, it all makes sense. There was nothing I could think about that contradicted what I had just realized. So when it downloads, it's like exactly what that was.
And so what exactly was your realization in that moment?
I know I'm going to get to the juice. And so it was the moment when I realized that our form in the gym, when we're worried about injuring ourselves, is completely opposite to the way we move in everyday life. So in everyday life, we slouch, we bend through our spine to pick things up. When they're really light, we just bend over and grab them. But if it's a deadlift, you've engaged your core, you hip hinge, you get down, the spine doesn't move. And what made sense was when you looked at the anatomy supported that. So I was like, okay, well, now I've got a hypothesis. I need to test it. So I need a subject. And I'm like, well, that's me. So I'm going to start doing this in my life. So I started that when I was 38 years old and I'm 51 and I've never had back pain since. Nothing. I don't even get an ache or a stiffness. Nothing.
And you still have herniated discs in your back.
2 herniated discs, I'd done a MRI in our clinic. We have a clinic that has an MRI and we're like, well, let's do an MRI of it and let's show people that you can heal herniated discs. The results came back identical, if not actually a little worse, because it apparently showed some pressure on a nerve. And I have nothing that supports that image, nothing. And so it was profound because I hadn't met anyone that experienced it like that. So then I wrote a book. Right? I wrote a book on it and I wrote that book in less than 6 weeks. I just couldn't stop writing it. It just flowed.
What's the name of that book?
Back to Basics, a surprisingly simple solution to back pain. And so the whole story is if you actually move your body the way it was designed to be moved, you reduce the repetitive stress and strain that weakens the tissue until it fails and you have an episode of back pain. Especially because it's really got the ability to lift hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds. I deadlift 400 pounds. I never lift that heavy in my life. So if I can do it in the gym like that and I move with those patterns in life, my back should never hurt.
Yeah.
And guess what's how it's never hurt. That was my introduction to this concept of simple. It's a very simple concept, the physics behind our design, but the application of simplicity is difficult because it's habitual.
That is so fascinating. And what I'm hearing too is there is a bit of a gap between diagnosis and reality, the way we're experiencing life. Because oftentimes when we get a diagnosis, we believe it. And then when we believe it, it's almost like we do no longer see a way out of it because that's how it is. And therefore we are doomed. And that's that. Versus understanding that a diagnosis is just a physical snapshot of what's happening in the third dimensional reality that we're in, and that there's so much more than the third dimension, and that we have control by both changing our behaviors and also changing our mindset to start reframing what's actually happening. I can relate to that personally because I was sitting in front of a computer for way too many years doing my work, and all of a sudden start getting really bad neck pain in my cervical spine. And I've also been in a car accident when I was learning how to drive. Somebody crashed into me. And I think I had a little bit of spine issues from that already, starting it. And so eventually I went to see a chiropractor, and he did an x-ray, and he told me that something was off in my cervical spine. And I was in severe pain. And so just like you, I said, okay, what are we going to do to make this go away? And he said, this is not going to go away. And part of me wanted to believe that because he was an authority figure to me. And another part was like, no, that's not how I'm going to continue life. And so I was lucky. A friend of mine who had a baby and was breastfeeding at the time had also cervical pain. And she ended up using a memory foam pillow at night when she slept. And each night it repositioned her cervical spine in a way that she ended up waking up pain-free. And I got myself one of those. And I've had that for about 12 years now. Every night I have to sleep with it. If I don't, I do get a little bit of the pain, but I'm fine. And I eventually ran into that chiropractor in a coffee shop. And I shared with him that I didn't like the doomsday diagnosis and the absolute determined, no, this is never going to change. And I told him that I am completely pain-free as long as I do the right things on a daily basis, which sounds like what you're doing too. You're just using your body in the proper form.
That's it. And that's the key. To me, again, it's not relying on anything outside of me. Yeah. It's nothing. I don't care if I sleep on a rock, on a pillow, on a bush, on the sand. I'm not going to rely on anything. If I have to, I'm missing something. Mm-hmm. I'm missing something. There's something else I need to do. Going back to what you said about the diagnosis, medicine nowadays is struggling with a lot of things. It's interesting because I believe we have one of the best medical systems in the world. And people always challenge, oh, no, it's like blah, 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 weights. And I'm like, no, it's like have a heart attack, have a stroke, have a limb that's falling off your body. We put stuff together, we repair, we'll keep you alive because that's what it's designed for. It's not designed for chronic issues and chronic pains and chronic conditions and conditions that are related to habitual patterns in the way we live our lives, right? But that's what I teach people now. That's why my practice is shifting, because I want to empower individuals to use and function the way their body was designed to function so they don't experience the chronic symptoms that they're experiencing, right? So if you look at the human body, it's really got three systems: biochemical, physical, and emotional. Body, mind, and soul. If you just balance those by functioning the way those sides were designed to function, your body will take on the state of health. A lot of people talk to me about being lean and fit and all these other things. And they're like, how much protein and what supplements do you take? And I'm like, that's relying on stuff outside of me. I said, I learned how to eat again. Oh, no, but like, do you train hard? I'm like, no, actually, sometimes I don't go for weeks. And people are blown away, especially ones in the gym, because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm working so hard, but I'm not getting any results. And I'm like, yeah, that's treatment. You're going to the gym as a treatment, just like going to the chiropractor. You're relying on the treatment in order to get something that's not getting the results you truly want, which is the body or the fitness or the health that you're looking to get. And that's because you're relying on something outside of you. What if you just ate well, moved your body around in life in a way that would allow you to be physically fit? You ate in a way that allowed you to be biochemically balanced, and you knew how to think so you didn't stress out and activate stress hormones that pushed you into survival and caused you to break down to the point where eventually you start to get the symptom of the diagnosis. That, to me, is the average life. It's the opposite. It's like, listen, nothing in this world's really going to kill us. That stress response is designed for run, fight, or hide. And the beauty really of the human being is that we can turn it on by thought alone. So when the credit card statement comes in, when I hate my job, my boss, I can activate the stress response that causes a neurochemical response inside my body that shifts my body into survival, takes all that energy and all those building blocks for restoration, repair, and joy, and shunts them into the extremities to run, fight, or hide. Eventually, no organism in nature can withstand long-term stress. They can't tolerate it.
Right.
So if we can turn it on by thought alone, then we can become addicted to those stress hormones because they're highly addictive. That's what controls our thinking. So that's why the emotional regulation component is such a big part of person's health, which goes back to what you were talking about. When you get the diagnosis, right? You get a cancer diagnosis. You've got a story about it that you've heard over years that goes into action inside of you. And so when you get that diagnosis, whatever that story is to you will determine what your experience with it is. But the beauty nowadays is I get to say to my clients, to patients, to people is just because you got a diagnosis doesn't mean you have to experience it that way. Mm-hmm. Because how does the placebo effect work? That was an awakening in my life too, was one day I was working on a person and I was just zoning out and I was like, wait a second. This placebo effect happens in research papers all the time. And we just say, oh, that was the placebo effect. Mm-hmm. But the chemotherapy worked. I'm like, cool. I want to know what that guy did to get rid of that cancer just by thinking he was getting the real stuff. Mm-hmm. That was profound to me. That was a moment in time where I'm like, oh my gosh, how much power do we have here? But we just don't understand it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not willing to just sit here and accept that we have this ability and not investigate if I can actually tune it, if I can actually use it in my life. And the craziest thing is when I first started as a chiropractor, I remember the day as vivid as ever. It was like a year in, not even a year in, talking to a patient. I said, hey, listen, you know what? If I could figure out how to get people to heal their body by thought alone, I'd quit being a chiropractor. Weird, because it feels like we're getting closer to understanding how that works and how we can use our minds to help heal our bodies.
Yeah.
Sorry. See, there's me off on a tangent.
There's no sorry whatsoever in this. I'm just like hanging on to every word that you're saying. And what's coming up for me too is some of the teachings by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is also a chiropractor, who also had a back injury and ended up figuring out a way to heal himself and then had that big realization and is now, for the last many, many decades, teaching how to navigate the, I guess, in a sense, the placebo effect in a way more powerful way that we can truly, truly heal ourselves.
I met Joe in his books. I went through some stuff in my personal life that shifted my consciousness. I went through a divorce and I was sitting there and I was going through divorce. Life went the opposite. I was a loving, caring kid. Everyone loved me. I was the teacher's pet and parents loved me. I was all that stuff. But I was doing that because I didn't want to make trouble. Like, what? Like, who wants to be a problem or anything? So I never even thought about this. And then as I got into soccer, I started to recognize that the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
Then I got a little squeaky later in my life. And then I got really abrasive because I was mad at life. I was like, I just finished playing soccer. I mean, talk about dopamine and adrenaline, and then getting into life and going, oh my gosh, like I'm going to make lunch for the kids and I'm going to draw, like from pro athlete to that, it's like depression. There's just like a holy cow. And so in my marriage at the time, things got rocking. I'm like, I'm out and went through all that. And one day I'm single and I met a couple people and I'm like, okay, I hit the brakes, like full stop. And I'm like, okay, society tells me pro athlete, doctor, entrepreneur, valedictorian, running my own practice, 2 beautiful kids, good marriage. I'm like, I got everything. But why do I feel empty? Why do I feel so not good? And in that moment, I probably had more spiritual awakenings than I can count now when I think about them. But in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the common denominator of all those things that society says are so good and amazing? It's me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, maybe I'm the problem. And so in that moment, I'm like, I'm the common denominator. So I have to be the one that needs the work, the problem, whatever you want to look at. I said, but the beauty of that is I'm then the solution.
I'm getting full body goosebumps as you're saying that, because it just resonates so deeply with me. We are our own problem and we are our own solution. So what did you do to start turning things around? What happened?
Of all things, I read a book. And I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It was just a book. And the crazy thing again, I carried that book from when I was like 16. And at that point, I would have been, oh my gosh, I don't even know when I said like 30 something. I carried this one book around. I didn't read forever, like ever. So one day I just picked it up because my parents had given it to me. And I started reading it. And it's like it spoke to me in the moment. I read it 3 times. I took notes on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And it started me down the pathway of this self-development, self-help, personal, professional growth. I ended up at a big Bob Proctor event, but I was also conditioned and had been taught that these guys are snake oil salesmen, right? They don't go there. It's like a cult. So then I started reading and studying. I'm like, it all makes sense though. And I went on this event and it was the life-changing event. These people speak my language.
Yeah.
And it was deep inside. Move forward a few years and I'd run out of books. I started reading then and I read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. And I just engulfed them. Like I'm your intellectual consciousness at that point. I can't get enough of it, right? And so I ran out of these books and I got into Indigo and I walked by and I saw this book called Evolve Your Brain by Joe Dispenza. And I'm like, oh yeah, when I was at Bob Proctor, someone told me about this guy. So I took his book home and I started reading it and it floored me. I couldn't stop. I think I read it in 2 days, 3 days, but it was talking about energy, frequency, meditation. And I knew there was something about energy, frequency, and meditation that was true, but nobody could explain the science to me. So I put the wall up to it. And if you ask any of my colleagues at school, they'll tell you, they'll be like, Garrett's talking about what? They'll be like energy and frequency and spirit and God. And I'd be like, yeah, because someone could explain the science to me. So then I read his 2nd book, his 3rd book, his 4th book. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, who is this guy? And I looked him up online and I go, oh my gosh, he's coming to Vancouver. I'm like, I'm going. So I clicked on and I went to one of his events. The funny thing is he's never come back to Vancouver, ever. It was the one and only time he came to Vancouver. And I went there.
Divine timing.
It was so divine. And I went there. And judgment, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these people, meditators and yoga people. And, you know, they're in these beads. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, no, man, I bought in. I want to learn this stuff because he's a doctor. He's all the things he says he is, science, neurology. Well, I sat in that event and I had a bunch of experiences, but I had one very, very, very profound experience in one of the later meditations. His events are so awesome. It's like, do you know what his itinerary is? Show up on this day at 9 a.m. check-in, and you're done on this day at 12 noon. And it's 7 days. There's nothing in between. You're like, what? Like, what do we do? like nothing. And I'm like, this is crazy. And then even in his event, he'll go, okay, we're going to break for lunch. It's now 12:03 and 23 seconds. We'll see you at 1 04 and 19 seconds. And you're like, what? But you realize that when he's talking like this, he's like, there is no schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being present in every moment. I came from hustle, grind, fight, competition to meditation where it is soft, surrender, love, joy, compassion. Those don't match. Mm-hmm. So I'm in meditations trying hard to make them work, thinking that that's how you're supposed to do it. But he's such a effortless teacher and guide in all that information and blends it so well that I had these experiences and you can't explain them. Like it wouldn't do it justice. You just can't speak human to the experiences of these feelings. But this one I had was such profound love that it wasn't human. Mm. There wasn't even a speck of sand of negativity in that moment with me.
Was that in a meditation that you sat in during this event?
Yeah. And so I had just come out, laid down, and he lays you down afterwards. And I just had this white come over my visual. My eyes were closed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm still contemplating with it, going, wait a second, am I making this up? You know, are my eyes open? Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm still struggling with the belief of what's going on here. But I had this feeling of just intense love. I was in tears and I was just like, life's changed. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, I went home at the end of the event and I sat there and life was different. It was like time dilation. It was like one day felt like a year. And I remember sitting up in bed and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I need to do. But in that moment, I didn't back the action with the experience. And so I never took action on what I'd learned. And I suffered for a while. Mm-hmm. You know, wow, trying to integrate at that level of consciousness was almost a depressing event. Yeah. You know, but then going back to it, experiencing it at that level and getting the own experience with it.
I'm hearing this a lot from my guests here in this podcast, that there are these incredible moments of awakening, of realizations, of these big aha moments, and we know exactly what's up. And then life happens and we don't really know how to integrate it because it's such a different paradigm from the programming that we're used to. And so what did you do to start bringing those back together and eventually turn into the version of you that you are today, helping people really heal with body, mind, and soul?
The greatest teaching I had at the moment was that there is a unity, a wholeness, a oneness. Mm-hmm. We're all a part of that. And again, epiphany, everything made sense. I come from a religious background. And
can you talk a little bit more to that wholeness, that oneness?
Yes, I would love to. The teaching is that God is omnipresent, omnipotent, everywhere, oneness, wholeness. It's the same as quantum field, energy, frequency, like whatever word you want to use. I use God. So when I think about the teaching, it's like he's everywhere. Well, if he's everywhere, there's nowhere he's not. So he's in me, between me, with you. So if I speak to you, I'm speaking to me. So if I just speak to me, then I'm going to speak with compassion and love. And if I don't, then I can reflect back and go, man, I told that person I judged them and I gave them this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm judging myself. That's where all that came. So the teaching made sense. So this oneness and wholeness became this theme in my life, which was like, I'm not going to be a bad person. I'm not going to fight, argue. What's the point? Mm-hmm. And so when I realized that, I started to realize I also separated myself from that oneness, the wholeness, because you can easily separate yourself by saying you're not a part of it, because whatever you're not conscious of doesn't exist for you. So if we can become conscious of it, then it exists for us. So I started to become more conscious about the wholeness, the oneness, God. And when I became more conscious, I realized he showed up in my life. Oh my gosh, it's me again, right? I'm the solution. I can't say my prayers to God and say, okay, thanks, dude, I'm out. Now I'm going to go do it my way. I thought that's how it's like you say your prayers and then he's going to deliver. And if he doesn't deliver, then you're not worthy. And blah, blah,
Okay. I need you to break this down a little bit for me. How exactly does that work? So you become aware that you are responsible, that you are consciousness, that God is everywhere. And as you're talking to others, you're talking to yourself. And then how do you apply that to your actual life in a way that you can really harvest that energy and make that your life?
I love the way you asked that. I think that's just a beautiful way you said it. And I have to tell you, I fall from grace a lot. And I love that too. I fall from grace. What does that mean? I go human. I get mad and I get frustrated and I get angry, right? That separates me. But I can bring myself back because I'm like, oh yeah, I just went human again. Okay, I just went inside my own thinking I got control of this. How do you know that when you got in the car accident, not you, someone gets in a car accident, that it wasn't to stop you from the next accident, which would have actually ended your life? Mm-hmm. Right? So just those things. It's like, how can we, one piece of God, understand all of that? We can't. But we could trust it. Mm-hmm. We could have faith in it. So a lot of people ask me the exact question. They go, look, you can't think like that all the time. I'm like, no, I fall from grace all the time. But the majority of the time, it's like I go to McDonald's still. I have donuts. But the majority of the time, I'm eating the way my body was designed. So I do that with thinking. The majority of my time, I'm thinking the way I'm designed to think. And what's that? In line with God. Like if joy, happiness, love, compassion, and empathy are the characteristics and personalities of this God, the way I look at it is if I'm, and we're talking authentically, love, joy, happiness, and we act in those feelings, wouldn't we then be doing the will of God? Mm-hmm. Which was profound to me. I thought I was supposed to figure out what I had to do first, and then I would feel it.
Okay,
right?
So now it's starting to click for me. You're basically just living in those ways.
Yep, that's right.
And by embodying that, everything is rearranging itself around you because now it's magnetic, like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. It starts with an intention, which is a thought, which releases through electricity, chemicals in our brains that create emotions in our bodies that then magnetically start attracting the situations and circumstances in our life to give us a vibrational match. So if we have negative thoughts, we attract negative things. If we have positive thoughts that make us feel good, life shifts in a more positive way.
The thought sends the signal out. The feeling draws it back to you.
Yeah. And then we can just audit ourselves. How am I feeling? And so what do you do if you're feeling bad? How do you change that to a more joyful experience so you can actually attract what you really want in life?
I think we all have a frequency elevation toolbox.
And what does that look like?
So mine is exercise. Mm-hmm. So if I'm down, if I'm struggling, I go work out, I go run. It forces the energy through my systems, through those lower survival centers and moves them up into these more creative centers. Because when you're stressed out, your heart starts to pump erratically and fast. And then your brain is monitoring your body and it monitors that. It gets that signal and goes, oh crap, we're in survival. So it goes all chaotic to focus in on your environment and really look for the threats and things like that. So what do? You deep breathe. What does the deep breathing do? Slows down the heart rate, changes the stroke volume. The brain sees that and goes, okay. Now the heart signals the brain to say we're safe. The brain goes, okay, now I can create again. The worst time to talk to your child is when they're angry and they're mad and they're this and they're that. And it's like, how do you teach them anything? And that's what I learned from Joe. He's like, he sends his kids onto the trampoline and they go play and they go play. And then he goes plays with them and they're laughing and then and everything slows down. And he goes, now what was that you were doing? Oh, you know what? This guy did this. And I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. If a bunch of adults would actually take that advice.
Maybe we all need trampolines in our workplaces.
Yes, I do believe that little, when they used to have those little trampolines and people would bounce on them, I think that was part of that. See, 100 years ago, doctors used to slice people and bleed them out, and it was called bloodletting. And so when someone was sick, they'd go for their bloodletting. Okay. That was a doctor. So at some point in our existence, we believed that that was a ethical, great way to keep people healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, we think it's the medicines and even exercise and all these other things that keep us healthy. Okay. If we follow the trend, what happens in 100 years from now? I believe we're going to look back at these times and we're going to go, hey, remember those days back in the 2000s when they had these people called doctors, right? And they said they would heal you, right? Like, I think we have to continue evolving. And I believe exactly as you're saying, we have an emotional regulation system. And this emotional regulation system is a signal system. It tells us when we're on track or off track, if we're aligned or malaligned. And if we look at it that way, it's the same with pain in the body. Like, most people with back pain don't wake up one day and they're incapacitated on the ground. They get up and they go, and they get back to work. And I'm like, that's a back problem.
Yeah.
That's the body going, hey, we've been here too long. And you're going to do that for a while. And then what happens? The pain starts. So now the body goes, you didn't listen to the stiffness. So now we're going to give you a little bit of pain. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to pop the Advil and tell the body to shut up. Right? And then the body goes, okay, now I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
You get it. Now you'll do anything I tell you to do.
Yes.
Right?
I so completely resonate with what you're saying. I even feel the same way about depression. I feel like it's a full timeout, like just full stop. And we get to choose to take antidepressants for that. And oftentimes that's a great way to transition.
Absolutely.
And then we get to make a choice, like, how do we actually want to rearrange our lives, that it's in alignment with purpose, with joy, with something that makes us actually want to get up. And as you said, makes you never, ever want to have to retire because you just love what you're doing.
So I think I think when you look at how the mind is organized, how the brain is organized, and how stress works, how the sympathetic and the parasympathetic parts of the autonomic nervous system work, like, I'm an intellectual junkie. I really, really was. And now I'm moving into this intuitive, energetic junkie. It's like, if the placebo effect works and someone can teach you how to do it, am I going to wait for science to tell me that it works? Yeah, you giggle because it's like, what a waste of time. Right? So I think
What a waste of time.
The most innovative people in the world, and they will tell you this, they couldn't wait for science. It took too long. Right? And so for me, I think that's why I love Joe's work so much, is because he's combining the two. He's really doing a really good job in penetrating the current system by delivering his results and work, his life's work, through the portal of science so that they can hear him. Now they can't ignore him. I think that's the better way to say it, is they can't ignore what he's doing because he's presenting it to them with their language. So if they discount what he's doing, they've got to discount what they're doing. That's a tough position to be in.
Right.
Because now you look like a cynic if you don't look at the research that maybe Joe is presenting that's showing so, like, we're talking profound medical changes and physiological changes in the human body from meditating. If you go down the pathway of the research that Dr. Joe has been creating and independent companies have been doing, it's getting louder is what I'm trying to say. It's getting louder.
What an incredible time of transition that we're living in. And we see the good, the bad, and the ugly all happening at the same time. And I always feel like it takes the real ugly for the real beauty to show up too, because we need that contrast. And it just really feels we're in 2025, we're in this year of just massive, massive downgrades and upgrades and,
and I love
grades, all of it.
Yeah. I love the concept or the image of chaos before coherence. Like, you're going to get a breakup of everything and then it's going to coalesce into a coherent thing again.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's collective consciousness. And I think it is starting to elevate because we're getting more people like yourselves sharing it on a platform that gets louder and louder. It flows. It makes sense. When I talk to people about their postures and their mechanics, I don't even get to chiropractic until the very end because I know that my treatment, my chiropractic treatment, however someone has had it before, if they don't combine it with what they need to do that's in their life, not just exercises, because people don't do exercises because that's relying on something outside of normal to fix it. But if they change their habit and they combine that with chiropractic care, now I get to be calling myself the chiropractor that never wants to see you again. Because now you've applied exactly the simplicity that we've explained, and you've used the treatment to get your body back to its closest to its optimal as you possibly can.
How beautiful.
That's how medicine's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you said with depression. You got to take the antidepressant to take you out of the depressed state so you can start thinking rationally. Then the counselor can come in and start helping you navigate all of that, right? But if you can't come out of that depressed state, no amount of counseling is going to give you anything. But on the flip side, you can't keep taking the pill. We know that.
Because there's a deeper message below that says you're actually not in alignment. What you
not in, that's
change.
Right.
And then once that change happens, stuff starts to align again.
Like imagine if you could literally work with depressed individuals who would take their antidepressant and then walk them through this whole model of energy and frequency and how the mind works and, you know, how fulfillment is and how life should be lived and all these other things. And it's like, oh my gosh, like now I see a way out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we can solve everything here.
Oh my God. Garret, I could be talking with you for hours, probably for years at this point. You're so full of wisdom. I would love for our listeners to be able to find you, and also if you have any offerings to share that.
Absolutely. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Dr. Garret Kusch, Dr. Garret Kusch. There's a way to find me. The offering I have is really in line what you and I are both involved in nowadays, which is if the way I talk, the way I speak, the way I share things resonates with you, I live my life the way I deliver my business and my work. So the program I have, I called it Trinity because it's really three-sided. It's symbiotic. It works together to bring a person back, empowering them to change their life so they can live a healthy, happy life. And so I deal with the biochemical, the physical, and the emotional sides of this wellness triangle to help people become healthy again. It's one step, I believe it's one step before you go to Joe's work, which is really doing everything in meditation.
Yeah.
So we apply diet, nutrition, we apply posture mechanics, and we decide to teach people how to think again so that they can then bring balance back to their life. So that's the offering that I have. It's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, and I will put all the links in the show notes so people can easily click on those and find you. Before we end, I have one final question for you.
Oh, I love it.
You could go back in time and give a message to a younger version of you. What would you tell him?
You know what? It makes me emotional, I think, because so many have lost it. And I think you can do this. You can go back and you can talk to your younger self. Because I believe everything happened in the quantum field. Everything is there. It's all there. There's no past, present, or future. There's no time. Everything exists at the same. So go back and tell yourself your child. And do you want to know what I think it is? I think the child has to tell you something. What would my child tell me? He'd look at me and go, why'd you get so damn serious? What happened to the play and the fun and the joy? It's like, hey, Dad, let's go play.
I love that. Let's go play. And
let's go play.
It is.
So it is.
Thank you so much for your time, for all your wisdom that you're sharing, for the beautiful work you're putting into the world, and all the many, many people you're going to be able to heal through this work, who will be able to find ease in their lives again, rather than being stuck in a cycle of pain. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Garret. I really appreciate you. Keep shining your light.
Oh, thank you. And right back at you. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. Spread this word. It needs to be heard by everybody. Thank you again. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Wake Up Protocol. If you like what you heard, share this episode with 3 people who need to hear this message. And if you want to go deeper, head to thewakeupprotocol.com and sign up for our email list. That's where we share behind the scenes insights, bonus resources, exclusive invites, and the kind of guidance we only send to our community. And if this is the last thing you hear from us, all we'd like to say is keep going, trust yourself, follow your heart. Until next time, have a safe and happy journey.